Please remember that you might want to use the speaker view for our speaker today, and also please refrain from using chat during the sermon. In the summer of 2010, while jogging on the streets of Chicago, God broke Josh Dorrell's heart for the city of Galveston. It was 4 little words that did it. Galveston is the place. Josh described it as the clearest voice I've ever heard. He went home and told his wife, Danielle, who was home with their 2-year-old daughter, Zoe. Barely able to pick out Galveston on the map, they packed up their belongings and found themselves in Galveston that same weekend. Armed with a 3-year startup grant from Christian Mission Concerns, they hit the ground running. They moved to the North Broadway neighborhood, one of the communities hardest hit by Hurricane Ike, and began doing their life with their neighbors. In addition to doing disaster recovery for a short season, they organized street camps for the neighborhood kids. Josh even took a job at Wright Cooney, the local community rec center. Having been part of Mission Waco with his parents, Jimmy and Janet, Josh knew that in order to affect real change, his neighbors needed to be part of the solution. So he began interviewing everyone he came across, asking them, how can we make this neighborhood we love better? The answer came pouring in, but 3 answers seemed to outshine the rest. After-school programs for kids, mentoring programs for youth, adult job training. From these, Galveston Urban Ministries was born. So with that introduction, Josh, please take over.
Hey, good morning. Well, thank you for the kind welcome, and always fun to be with a new set of folks on these fun mornings. I stepped in about 10 o'clock this morning and heard all the fun conversations and the camaraderie. And it is really a fun and sweet thing to see when there is true fellowship. I heard conversations from, one lady said she's had the same haircut since she was 6. Somebody else talked about the same person and how they've cut their hair and their husband's hair for the last 25 years. Like it may seem silly, but to me, that's the beauty of what real fellowship looks like. It's this idea of truly knowing each other and being known. And so again, thank you guys for inviting me in to be a part of your morning and celebrating what is going on today. So as always, I love talking about the ministry and the work that has been set before us, my family and my staff. It will come across clear, I hope. We love this city. We love what we get to do. We love our community and love what is taking place. And so just to highlight for you guys real quick, I'm going to share our video, the Galveston Urban Ministries video, and then I'll launch into more of a kind of presentation after that. So if you will, turn it up so you can hear, and we'll go from there.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm the Executive Director and Founder of Galveston Urban Ministries. We develop holistic relationships to transform the community. We do that in our 3 areas of focus. Community revitalization. Over the last several years, we've been buying and rebuilding negligent and vacant lots to build them back even better. We've taken old buildings that were flooded by hurricanes and allowed businesses to get started and to create economy and to create places like LRB, local grocery store that is providing healthy food for our community. We've also taken back properties that our staff get to have amazing offices in. We have a place where our team gets to dream, they get to envision, they get to build, and they get to welcome our community into buildings that people, when they walk in, can't believe that this is in their neighborhood. One of our most exciting properties is our future training and retreat center. It's going to create jobs for people in food and hotel tourism industry. It's going to be an event venue for weddings and other corporate events. And it's going to be a place that we can house our volunteer work teams who come and stay with us throughout the year. We host about 25 teams a year who spend their mission trip with us. When we talk about community revitalization, we're talking about taking things that were broken and busted and allowing them to become places of life and of revitalization. Outreach is our second area of focus. This is where we engage with volunteers, with people from our community, with donors, with people who want to be invested in our ministry, and those who are reaching out to as well. One of our favorite things we do every year is a National Night Out. We invite our whole community, volunteers, donors, and neighbors alike. We shut down the street, we cook out, and we have a lot of fun. We also host things like the school supply store and Christmas toy store. This is where we invite our community, our donors, to come together and be a part of a team together as we make a huge impact. This is one of those unique areas where we're not only equipping our community, our donors, and our volunteers with information about what it looks like to serve without hurting people, but also allows them to engage in a way that is loving, kind, and supportive to all those involved. Programs is our third area of focus. This is where we work with children, youth, and adults in and from our community. We do things like the Getting Ahead program, where we spend 24 weeks with our families, investing time, energy, and resources as we co-investigate life together. We ask questions, and then we're asked questions. We give information and we receive information. It's an amazing time where we work together to really understand what's going on. We have the art program with the art show as well. We spend time with our youth, helping them cultivate amazing skills and abilities as they get to show off their creative side and then sell it to other people as a way to raise money to go to camp. It's an amazing time to watch our donors, watch our volunteers, and watch our youth come together, and we put the spotlight on our youth as they then educate this population with what they've done and how they've done it. This is what empowerment looks like. When our youth from our programs are raising money to send themselves and others to camp, it's an amazing area where you see empowerment take root. At the end of the day, we're about relationships. We go through the ups, the downs. We want to be that 2 a.m. phone call when life's not going well. We want to be that 4 p.m. call when somebody got their first job. When we get to celebrate life with people, that's the joy of what we get to do. It shows that we need you and you need us. Together, we get to see life transform. Join with us as we continue to make holistic relationships to transform the community.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Just a second. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Good.
Awesome. All right. Well, can you see the gum logo now? Is our first slide? Hold on just a second. Let me start that over again. Let's see here.
You're back.
All right. Let's see. All right. Can you see the gum logo?
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. So 2010, as stated in our intro, we knew we needed to invest long-term to get things started. And as I said, I'm going to read a quick scripture real quick, and it's from Isaiah 58:12. So Isaiah in the Old Testament, and it says, "Some of you will build the ancient ruins. You will restore the foundations laid long ago. You will be called the repairer of broken walls and the restorer of streets where people live." That's me. I want to be known to be someone who's called a repairer of streets. And I hope you know that I'm not trying to take the city's job. When I talk about repairing the streets, I'm talking about this idea and this concept that our streets need to be safe. Now, why do I start with that, right? We are an optimistic, forward-thinking group. We are not going to just point out all the negative and all the bad and all the broken. At the same time, any of you who've ever read the Jim Collins book, Good to Great, if you don't address the brutal facts, you'll be sorely mistaken for actually how to move forward. And so wanted to highlight something that's popped up on my Facebook page this morning. This was a year ago, a beginning of COVID. All the stimulus money had just come out, and my neighborhood was not going well. So this is in front of my house. This policeman right here is under my house. A guy had tripped out on PCP and ended up under my house, thrashing, kicking, and causing all sorts of issues. Now, I bring that up because, one, my neighborhood has issues. My neighborhood has some things going on in it that some of you have maybe seen and maybe some of you have not seen. And so we have to address the brutal facts when we look at some of the complications that are going on. By June of last year, 2020, right, COVID kicked in. I had to call the police probably more than 20 times for domestic violence, drugs, and alcohol abuse in public areas that was causing offense and or trouble for other people. That's a challenge, right? We have to recognize that some of these things are going on in our communities, and if we don't address them, then we will miss opportunities to really make impacts in the way that we want to. So again, what I want to do is also talk about our community revitalization. So while I mentioned the idea of brokenness, we also wanted to kind of highlight not just my incredible ability to dress well. In 2010, when we moved here, we started looking at a place to really build. What does it look like to invest in a community? For those of you who know, north of Broadway, our target zone when we first started was 47th to 27th, and then Broadway to the Bay. Historically, that had been an area of challenge. We have Sandpiper Cove Apartments. We have probably the highest concentration of poverty in Galveston is in this community. So my wife and I bought a house in the community and started just building relationships, as we said. This was our first property. It was the old Fairy Tales Learning Center. It was a daycare building, flooded by Ike, 4.5 feet of water. Sat empty until 2010 when we bought it. And as you can see, it was in disrepair. Most people said bulldoze it and start over. So we bought this building and a house adjacent to it for about $30,000. Now, if any of us could go back in time, we would have bought everything we could, knowing the property values in Galveston today. However, we recognized we had to start somewhere. And so now today, on this side, you can see we own almost $1.8 million just in property today because of the investments and the skills that we put into developing old, broken properties. That's what community revitalization looks like. Now, we don't do it simply for the property. Neighborhoods like mine are full of community members who love it. They love our community. But one of the challenges that we've seen, and one of the biggest issues that we've been trying to address, is how do you create ownership in a community where people don't own anything? Let that sink in for just a minute. What does it look like? We say, why don't they take pride in the community? Why don't they? Why don't they? Why don't they? And oftentimes it's because people in my community have never owned anything. They don't own the apartments, the houses, the yards they're not responsible to mow. There's trash everywhere. You don't own a vehicle for many in our community. We talk about this lack of ownership and pride in, and yet people don't own anything. And so as we as a community started reinvesting and community revitalizing, our neighbors spoke into this. They got to own this with us as they started doing this work together and say, this is not what we do. A couple years ago at one of our Christmas toy stores, one of our a former recipient of the store was now a volunteer. So she had gone from being served to now serving, which is our definition of an empowerment, right? When those who were once with their hand out are now standing on the other side of the table serving, modeling what change looks like. And somebody had tried to kind of bend one of the rules and try to kind of get a little bit of a leg up on other people. And instead of letting that happen, this mom that we'd known at that point for about 4 years said, I can't believe they would take advantage of our ministry like that. Did you catch it? Our ministry. They're owning now the work that is being done. Again, we went from one side to the other, and that's the beauty of what this looks like with community revitalization. Another story, and I may have shared this last time I was with you guys a year ago, but I'm sure if you're like me, you probably forgot it at some point, so who knows. So you guys remember Hurricane Harvey, that fantastic storm that flooded our whole region? So again, Gum was spared. We did not flood, but we wanted to use our resources and our capacities to really help and serve other people. So before I jump ahead to that part, let me tell you a quick backstory. There was a property in our community owned by, we'll leave the name out, owned by a man who is selling drugs, guns, and women. When you think about the brokenness of our communities, it was in my neighborhood, across from where I'm sitting right now in my office. The house was flooded, got dilapidated and broken, and so we bought it from the city. bulldozed it and cleaned it up. And that was next door to one of our church buildings where we hosted a lot of our after school programs. And so during Harvey, about 4, 5, 6 weeks in, our students were back to normal. Our volunteers were out there. And it was this image for me where you've got all these dodgeballs, you've got volunteers, you've got students in their uniforms, and they're running and playing and just full of joy. If you didn't know, throwing dodgeballs at small children can be really fun. But the idea was just to be together, right? So it was getting their energy out after school and then going into work on school. So Hurricane Harvey is going on, and I make it back to Gum at the end of the day. I'd been all over the county delivering generators and connecting volunteers and doing assessments on homes. And I parked my car and I'm just exhausted. But it was one of those moments where mentally and emotionally, I was just drained. And I saw the kids outside playing in the formerly owned property where drugs, guns, and women were being sold. Now these students are playing in a safe, controlled environment with volunteers who care and love them. It was one of those deep breath, I call them God, just divine moments where it's kind of like, oh, it's working. That was 7 years. We had been invested 7 years. And so as I was sitting there, just kind of watching the fun and the chaos go on, one of my neighbors walked down the street. Is an older gentleman who'd been in this neighborhood for probably 40 years. And he looked at me and goes, "Isn't it fun to see our neighborhood transform?" I mean, I think I had to fight back the tears with every level because it was one of those moments where, one, he literally just gave us our mission statement: developing holistic relationships to transform the community. As we've invested in our kids, our youth, and our adults in our program, and we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in this neighborhood, my neighbor said, "Isn't it fun to see our neighborhood transform?" A couple things happened to that. One, he called it our neighborhood, right? So it wasn't like, "Hey, you fixed our neighborhood." It was, look what our neighborhood is doing. We are changing this actively. And that was a huge win. And that comes with community revitalization, right? The goal is not just to go buy a bunch of negligent properties and gentrify the community. That's not the point. It's to revitalize, to make it a healthy, whole community. That passage I read from the Bible a few moments ago, where it said that we want to rebuild the age-old foundations and repair the streets and the broken down walls. That's what it looks like. For many in our community, the goal is to get out of our neighborhood. That does not say good things about your community. If the goal is to get out, that means you're strong leaders, you're entrepreneurs, and you're folks who have capacity to move out will. Right? We need to get our kids in a safer place. And that speaks negative connotations all over our community. And we want to shift that. We want to change that by being a part of the community and build that fabric better. That's what community revitalization looks like. So again, why did I show these pictures of the police? Because that was a year ago. That was 9 years into our ministry, or actually maybe almost 10 years at that point. Many of these things would break families. This is by far one of the most terrifying moments we've ever had in our family. So I've been doing urban ministry professionally, locally or globally for the last 18 years. 18 years I've been investing in this type of work. I grew up in a neighborhood very much like the North of Broadway neighborhood. But when an individual is tripped out on drugs and ends up under your house, as you can see, there's not a lot of space right there. Literally ripped the lattice off my house, climbs under my house, and is thrashing around. Most people would have to throw in the towel at that point because my wife and my children did not like that, to be clear. So for us, we have to go back to what were we called to do? What is the hope and the joy and the faith that we've established to make this worth it? Because experiences like this cause even those of us with the idea of trying to help say, you know what, I'm done. You're not going to put my family at harm's way. But we know if we're going to be repairers of street, we have to stick it out on moments when it's hard. We celebrate those moments when our neighbors say, look at our community transform. And then, months later, you have people who are tripping out and ending up causing issues in your community. I'm grateful, one, because I'm an optimist, and two, I have a greater hope than situations like this. The police treated this young African-American man with incredible respect and dignity. It very well could have been a national news headline for the way things were going on. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? We could have, in a very real circumstance, ended up with traumatic experiences for everyone involved. The Galveston police did a phenomenal job. They were kind. They called the ambulance to help him out at the end, and they really served with absolute respect and dignity. I couldn't have been more proud of our police force in the midst of a chaotic moment in our community. So I love that we get to do that. Now, wasn't planning on sharing that, but when it popped up on my Facebook page today, I realized these are important things for us to recognize. In the midst of chaos, there's still things that we can celebrate. There's still joy that can be found in the middle of it. So, as I said earlier, we are here for relationships. Everything that we do is built around relationships. The reason we use the word programs versus service provider or services is because a service requires you, meaning you need something and I have it. That is not mutuality. We want to establish a network that says that you need me and I need you. It's together that we are better. And so I say that because we've heard people from our community say, we love Galveston. You can get anything you want for free. What does that say about your city when people love it because you can get anything you want for free? It means that we've created a system that says you don't have anything to offer, just go get what you can get and move on. Many of the systems that we have, and please don't hear me say anything negative about our system, that's not what I'm saying, but we have systems in place right now where many of our families from our community have just enough to wake up and take a nap. That's not life. Right? That's not living, right? To wake up, that's not true purpose or identity. And we want to help people truly understand what they were created for and what their purpose is in life, right? Life is not just about this inwardly focused idea where I just can do whatever I want and go about life. For us, we believe there's more to it, and we want to help people unpack that. And so in relationships, we have seen that change more than anything else. And so these beautiful ladies right here and this sweet little boy were the graduates of our last Getting Ahead program. They spent the 24 weeks investing in themselves and the community, identifying current issues in their own lives, establishing new ways to move forward, and creating kind of a goal and vision for their own future. They can't do it on their own, right? Just like I can't do it on my own. I had a litany of people who have stood with me and helped me along my journey, from my parents and the way they raised me, to my grandparents who helped me, to friends, roommates, colleagues, friends, all of those things have stood with me to help me be where I am today. At no point can I say, hey, everybody, I made it. Look what I did by myself. Right? There's a community of people who've invested in me. And so we're now doing the same thing and creating opportunities to empower the next generation as they make and seek changes for themselves. So each one of these women invested 24 weeks in learning about some of those ideas and challenges in their own life. They identified barriers, areas that were really challenging and causing them to struggle in life. And as we lovingly sat with them and encouraged them, listened to them, and as they listened to us back and forth, we were able to unpack some pretty amazing things. So some of these women are now in college. They are establishing their own future and preparing the next preparing for their generation, for their next kids. I'm sorry, for their kids' generation, excuse me. The other beautiful part about the Getting Ahead program is when things like COVID happen, Ice Storm Uri, those crazy moments when things are going wrong. What we learned through our Getting Ahead program is what empowerment again looked like for us was our community was checking on us. Hey, Josh, are you okay? Candace, who leads this program, hey, Candace, are you okay? Are you doing okay? What do you need? Right? These are people who are in our programs are now saying, how are you doing? Right? It's that mutuality where it wasn't just, hey, you're in our program, let us serve you. It was a true relationship. So during Uri, we reached out to our families in our community. We have a large group me network. And so the group me text went out and we're checking on everybody. And our community started spreading the words as fast as they could to make sure other people were cared for. Right? It's no longer this inwardly focused idea. It was, how is my community doing? How are we changing these things? And it's so fun to see the work that we've put in actually play out. So here on the right side again, these are also, again, people who came to our first toy stores, our first school supply stores. The reason they're wearing those gum shirts and sitting on this side of the table is because now they are on the other side of the table serving. They were once being served, now they are serving. They're advocating. And if you don't know this, sorry, there it is right here. This lady right here in the middle is Latasha Jordan. She has been one of our shining stars. She was our first person to come to our very first school supply store 9.5 years ago. We didn't even have power in the building I showed you earlier, that building that had holes in the wall. She came to it. We just painted it, but hadn't gotten the power on yet. And she said, "Hey, I heard y'all are selling backpacks for $5. What's that about?" And she became one of our first advocates, and what I call like a person of peace. She is advocating, helping other people recognize that we're here to build in the community. And that's what empowering programs look like. We're helping people learn what they can give. The challenge in the service industry and in nonprofits like ours is oftentimes we make people show up and only receive what we can give. We don't ask much of them, or we may ask them to fill out a paperwork or do something along those lines instead of actually having investment and value in it. And we want to be a part of something different than that. I want to raise the expectation of what it looks like to make it in our community. That these are challenging times for all of us, right? COVID has been a challenge for the whole globe. And yet it's been so fun to watch those who've come through some of our programs, where they are today and how they're continuing to push forward because of that empowerment. Outreach, as we mentioned in the video, is one of our last areas of focus. This is one of those moments. One is this girl not just the most precious little girl you've ever seen, but for us, the reason this picture is so good for me is, one, you can see all the chaos and fun going on in the background. But oftentimes people in our community, the marginalized, the outcast, and the overlooked, are never the center of the story, are they? They're the margins. They're on the outskirts. We want to bring the outskirt, the marginalized, that person who may have never felt like they're the center of the story, to the center of the story. One, from our faith background as Christians, we believe this is what Jesus did with people on a regular basis. If you've ever read any of the Gospels, you can see story after story after story where Jesus brought people who were most of the time had been on the outskirts and thrown away, and he brought them to the center of the story. And he made them whole, sometimes physically, sometimes spiritually, sometimes emotionally, in all these different capacities. It's where we get the word holistic. We have so many people who want to come in and try to fix our community with one area. And yet each one of us knows that we have a mental capacity and a physical capacity, an emotional and a spiritual capacity. And we recognize that we need to work in all those areas. It doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian to work with us or be a part of our programs, but it's who we are. And it's how we have seen actual transformational work taking place in the midst of all the chaos. Just like this picture, as you can see, you've got people dancing and screaming and yelling. And if you've ever been in a gym with this many people, you know it's loud, right? There's echoes, there's these chaotic moments going on. And yet in the middle of it, we see the beauty of each individual. Our programs, while we have curriculums and we have a process for each one of them, we individualize every single thing that we do. We had a family that we were working with for a while. We'll call her Pam. And Pam was struggling with addiction and gambling. And so we catered how we served her, because we're not a gambling and addiction ministry, right? But we're going to work with her in those specific areas because she wanted to see some changes happen, because she identified that. So we began to help put some things with her and around her to stand with her and encourage her in those ways. We've had other people who have had different challenges from their past. Maybe they were 18 or 19. They made some poor choices just like I did. And that's caused issues for them in getting employment. And so we help them in different capacities to serve them in a way that allows them to get to those things. I hope that makes sense. It's not just saying, hey, everybody come fit into our mold and make it work. It's really about hearing from each individual and what they want to be a part of. Because we've heard loud and clear from our community, COVID has isolated so many people. If your network wasn't very big or struggling, challenging beforehand, you've probably been hurt a little bit over this last year of being isolated, right? Because the goal is to keep yourself and other people safe. And so now that the tide is turning just a bit, vaccinations are more prevalent. Our whole staff has been vaccinated. We're able to do some things now that we couldn't do a few months ago. And so this past week, literally last Tuesday night, we hosted an art night for our families. We invited our families, so whoever feels safe and wants to come, we'll stay socially distant. We'll encourage you. We partnered with Clay Cup Studios to get all these items. We had an artist and an architect from the Seabrook area who came in and spent about 2.5, 3 hours with our families, helping everyone create their own art. He walked people through things. And so there's people like me who are like, I'm not an artist, right? That's not my gift. He's like, no, Josh, you're missing it. You have the ability to physically draw on a canvas and paint and put things together. And he helped multiple families. And we had the ages from, I think 2 years old was our youngest, of course, caused some chaos. And we probably had some 50-year-olds in the room. So we had this wide breadth of people, a group of youth, a group of children, and a group of adults sitting together. Again, first time in a year plus that we've been able to do this with our families. The joy, the laughter, and the fun was so good. That's what relationships look like. It wasn't really even about producing a program or doing anything other than just being with the families that we love. We needed something to do and invite them to, and we laughed and played and just had so much joy. Pam, the one I mentioned earlier, who had been struggling with addiction, other thing, was there as well. And again, I changed her name for you guys. She sat there, and the man teaching the art came up to her and said, "You have amazing technique. Where did you learn that?" She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been trained in this. He said, well, you are really gifted. We should continue to work on this. Amidst the chaos of the room, loud children, loud youth, loud families, echoey building, an individual was sought out and made the center of the story. That's the beauty of relationships, right? In all the things that are going on in the midst of chaos, we can be seen and known. For us, one of the things that we've continued to identify is that to see true change out of poverty, people need to understand who they are and what their purpose in life for. All around the globe, there's been studies done on those exact same topics. There's a book called Walking with the Poor, and that's one of the things that they came up with was when people truly understand their identity and their purpose in life, life begins to change. To be financially poor is not a sin. It's not a bad thing to be financially poor, but our society oftentimes says that if you're poor, then you have all these issues, and that's not what we say at all. Because I know people who are extremely wealthy and they are lonely. That's poverty. To not truly understand what a real relationship looks like, right? I know people who have a lot of friends but are dealing with some mental and personal issues, and they feel impoverished socially. These are the holistic capacities that we look through. And so we want to continue to unpack and break those things down day in and day out. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, before COVID, we were at a conference, and the guy that was speaking explained something that was really impactful for me. He was talking about the aircraft carriers in the water. And so if you're an aircraft carrier, you're a large, giant ship. I think it's about 100 yards wide and about 400 yards long. I'm probably getting the specifics off just a little bit. But what he said was it takes over 5 nautical miles to turn that ship. As Susan shared at the very beginning, she thought I was a little bit wet behind the ears, a little bit green in this work. And honestly, there was some idealism in me that I thought I could turn the ship in about a mile, right? But what happens if you turn a ship in a mile that's supposed to go 5 miles? You lose your cargo and you lose your people. What I learned, this neighborhood has some absolutely incredible things in it. But if we try to turn things too quick, we're going to bulldoze people. We're going to lose individuals. We're going to lose our valuables, and we can't do that. We're on this slow trajectory to turn the ship. That's what Christian community development looks like. Us as an organization, that's what we do. We have a hope and a faith in things that are what I believe taught in the Bible. These are how we process and how we plan for things in the future. But we know our community has the ability to make things happen and be different. But it's challenging. There's going to be days when we have to have run-ins with the police, sometimes good and sometimes bad. There's going to be community members who are struggling that we need to walk with and stand with in the midst of chaos. We want to see a community transformed that people want to move into, that people take pride in and ownership in because it's their neighborhood and they are seeing these things take on. We don't do these things alone, right? Some of you have volunteered with us. Some of you have stood in the gap in different places. Some of you support financially. All of these things are part of what makes the work that we do take place. If we truly want to see things change, it takes a long-term investment. So many people have tried time and time again. And even in my short 10 years here, I've watched multiple people come in and flame out within 2 to 12 months. They have these great grandiose ideas, and then it gets hard and they leave. And people say, "Oh, Josh, have you heard about this new group?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's see if we can partner with them." And within 6 months to a year, they're gone. Over and over and over again. It's this longevity that we've got to see take place and make those changes. The opening, you guys said that you hope as a church that you will open minds and touch hearts. That's what we believe in. We want people to have open-mindedness about what it looks like to change and touch hearts. Because when you truly touch someone's heart, you are in their good graces for years and years and years. They're going to share the woes and the excitements with you. The last story before I close, I know we're getting close to time. We had some really big challenges at the end of 2020. I don't know if you guys read in the papers, but 2 teenagers had been killed within our community. One literally outside the GUM office, and another one in Lamarck. These were kids that we played with at the park 10 years ago. These are kids that played together with each other and are now at war because of the rival gangs that they're in. These are heartbreaking moments. We had a lot of struggles in December and January. And so December 27th at 3 a.m., I get a phone call from the police that I knew, and they're looking for a kid who's the primary suspect in the murder. Your heart breaks, one, for those who've been killed, and then two, that you know the kid who's now the primary suspect. And I mean, we were just in knots as a staff. We were heartbroken. We began finding some challenges and some things that didn't really make sense. And so our staff did what our staff does. We went to every court case. We gave rides to the mom when she couldn't get there. We calmed the dad down when he was getting outraged over the process, and we began to fight and fight and fight in a healthy, holistic way, again, that provides justice, not just pointing a finger. After 4 months, our kiddo was released, and we couldn't have been more excited. The reason I tell you that story is because the day he got out, my staff went to go get him. They brought him to the office, and this is a 16-year-old man from my neighborhood, or a young kid from our neighborhood. And I was in a meeting, and Dylan, who's our staff, announced this guy like he is the coming king. He's here. We're so excited. We couldn't have been more joyful because we knew he didn't do it. From the things we're hearing on the street to all the proof pointed that it was not him. He gets out. They interrupt a meeting I'm in my office, and I get to give this young man this huge embrace hug. And it was one of those hugs where he didn't back away. He didn't get away. Like sometimes you hug a 16-year-old and they're like, "Get away from me, you're weird." And he leaned into the hug. That's what relationships look like, right? It's these times when you need an embrace when life has been challenging. To know that he had a support network in us, and we weren't going anywhere. Even if he had been the guilty party, we weren't going anywhere. We were going to walk through the trials and the tribulations and the joys and successes with our families. And that's what relationships look like. We hope that those things are no longer part of our community. We don't want to be the neighborhood known for the detriments of the bane of the police's existence. That's not what we want. But we know there's work to be done. We know that we need those moments of embrace that says, it's okay, just be here. That's what Galveston Urban Ministries looks like. When we work on community revitalization, healthy programs, and outreach, we want to meet the individual and bring those who are on the outskirts to the middle of the story and celebrate who they are for the way we believe God has made them and their purpose in life. Now, as I close, it's less fun, but at the same time, we wanted you just to be aware. We have a golf tournament. It takes money to support the things that we do. And so if any of you are golfers, we'd love for you to see that. If you grab your phones, you can scan the QR code and it will bring up the information for support or sponsorship. This is not about a fundraising thing. I just wanted you to be aware that this is going on. So if you are a golfer and want to play, we'd love to have you. So thank you for allowing me to be with you. If you're okay, I'd love to close in a short prayer, and then I'll stick around for some time with questions. All right, join with me. God, thank you for caring about us and loving us. God, I believe that you are a God of love, mercy, and grace. Lord, we thank you for what you have done for us. We pray that you will continue to work in each of us as you see fit. Draw our hearts closer to you.
Lord, I love you, and I thank you that you loved us first. Continue to give us the hope, the grace, the mercy, and the drive that you want for us. Lord, I love you. It's in your name I pray, Jesus. Amen. Well, folks, thank you for being with us. I know some of you will stick around to ask questions, and those of you who need to step away, I know that's okay as well. But thank you for allowing me to be with you on this Sunday morning. Again, I pray your blessings over each of you.